Welcome to a very special episode. I'm Ivan, and I'm the author of the book, The Religion of Good. And today, I'm going to be talking about the ritual of secular Christmas. Stay tuned. So, secular Christmas has been much maligned by the Christian right lately, but I'd like to reclaim it as a valid spiritual event that need not be an homage to commercialism. I'm also not talking about the pagan antecedents to Christmas. I recognize that there are pagan antecedents to Christmas, and that's been, very well covered by others. I'm not going to attempt to cover those, but you know, used to be and is are not the same thing, right? So just because Christmas came from pagan antecedents or was co-opted by the church from pagan antecedents does not mean that Christmas is literally the exact same thing as those pagan antecedents. But interestingly, there is now this emerging or emerged secular tradition of Christmas. It's been around my whole life anyway. I mean, it's been around for like most of our lives. So I want to go into what is the mythology of that, what's the ritual of that, and why is it valid spirituality? All right. Let me first start with the mythology of secular Christmas. So we have this sort of fairyland in the form of the North Pole. We know that the North Pole of Santa Claus is not the same as the North Pole that is geographically there. We This is this fairyland in which there's shops with elves who make gifts. It's sort of this winter wonderland. It is ruled by sort of this fairy lord named Santa Claus and his queen, Mrs. Claus. And once a year at Christmas, Santa Claus goes on his sleigh pulled by magic reindeer that take gifts to every single house in the world. And all you have to do to receive this is you do something along the lines of bring a tree into your home. You have to decorate it. You put up stockings, something like that. Obviously, there's variants. With all myths, we know that they're myths because there's variants, right? So I'm not trying to tell you the one right, true, and only Christmas myth, right? But I'm just saying there's this mythology here. Okay. So let's look into this mythology a little more deeply, and specifically the rituals that go along part and parcel with this mythology. The telltale sign that there's a ritual here is when I said that you have to do certain things. You have to bring a tree out from the woods or the Christmas tree lot into your home. You have to decorate it so that gifts can be put under it. You have to bring stockings, possibly bring stockings and hang them above your hearth. You obviously don't have to have a hearth, like it's modern times, but there's some sort of thing. You might put cookies out for Santa as well as some milk. There's sort of these ritual acts that you need to participate in order for this myth to work the way it works, right? And that is really how rituals work. There's sort of a chicken and egg question about myth and ritual that I learned when I got my classics degree from Reed in '96. one thing that I learned about the anthropology of ancient Greek ritual is that their myths and their rituals inform each other. So oftentimes you have rituals that reenact myths. Oftentimes you also have myths that explain rituals. And both are going on here, and that's okay. Because, we have to remember that myths are not propositions. They're not meant to be these rational propositions. They are stories and characters and iconography that grow with a set of sacred acts and interactions. And a ritual may be defined as a series of acts that interact with myth. Okay? How do we interact with the myth of Christmas, which, as I've already alluded to, is fundamentally made to be interacted with? First of all, there's preparation for the ritual, which has its own ritual elements, which I've already discussed. The bringing in of the evergreen tree, the bringing in of other evergreens that you decorate your home with, wreaths, garlands, things like that, maybe holly around the windows, possibly the hanging up of stockings and putting out of food and drink for this sort of fairy king from the North Pole who brings the gifts. There's also the decorating of one's front door, of one's gate, of one's front yard. This provides the gate into the temple, which you have transformed your home into. At the center of this temple is, as always, the hearth, right? The sacred fire. This is where the Elf King Santa Claus descends magically to provide you with gifts. It doesn't matter if you actually have a fireplace. That's irrelevant, because remember, this is not literal. This is the world of myth and ritual, not the world of actual facts, right? So it's irrelevant whether or not it's possible to travel to every home, whether it's possible to chip down people's chimneys. That's not the point. We all know that it's not true, So, so let's unpack a little bit more what is going on in this ritual prep. So, first of all, you're bringing evergreens into the home. This is a sign of returning spring. It's the promise of returning spring when the deciduous trees are bare, when the land is barren in a temperate climate in the northern hemisphere, obviously. Then evergreens are still green, so it's a reminder that everything else will come back. The fields will come again, the trees will bloom again, and so forth, right? Not only that, but the lights on the tree, the lights in your yard and so forth, are reminders of the returning light. We are at the darkest time of the year, the winter solstice. It is going to get lighter, but it hasn't gotten lighter quite yet. And so, the days will get longer, and we symbolize that by bringing lights into the home and having sort of this festival of lights as well as the festival of evergreens. This all sets up the ritual proper. It is the context in which this ritual will occur. Now, what fundamentally is the ritual of secular Christmas? It is fundamentally a ritual of gift exchange. Now, yes, it also includes things like Christmas dinner or Christmas Eve dinner, however you celebrate it. It includes Christmas carols, but those are the trappings that pretty much all religious rituals have, or we expect to find in a religious ritual or a spiritual ritual of any kind. There's some sort of food and drink that's shared. There's songs that are sacred, that tell the sacred stories of that particular ritual or of the season it takes place in, and so on and so forth. I mean, those are, not to mention the decorating of the tree. The tree has, the various items on it that allude to various different kind of sub-myths, Frosty the Snowman, to, winter, to, all these various different things, right? But fundamentally, for me, the essential ritual act that I think distinguishes secular Christmas as a ritual from other forms of ritual is the exchange of gifts. I mean, obviously, that doesn't mean that there aren't any other rituals that have gift exchange. Of course, there are. I'm saying that it's specifically a gift exchange ritual rather than just any ritual, because most rituals have certain trappings: food, drink, and the iconography that is involved with it, that's, spread out around places with song and dance and music and whatever, things you hang up around your house or on the tree in this case. Also, it matters not that that Santa doesn't actually bring the gifts. In fact, it's significant and important that we give gifts to each other, and that is okay, because this is how mythology and ritual works, right? I mean, mythology and ritual is fundamentally not this, propositional, rational, hypothesis that's being put forth that, a certain thing really happens in nature. I mean, we know it doesn't, right? So it's not relevant that that the gifts are actually given by us. It's simply part of the myth that Santa delivers them. You could have contradiction in the sacred and in mythology and so forth, because they're not there to impart logical, rational facts, but rather to create the iconography, the mythic symbolic vocabulary, which the ritual interacts with, okay? First of all, it does not matter if I give you the same gift that you give me. It doesn't entirely matter if I get something more expensive for you or something cheaper for you, or even if I don't give you a gift or you don't give me a gift. I don't mean that it doesn't matter at all. What I mean is that this is not economic. There's not some sort of contractual obligation to give each other gifts of comparable value, because this is not trading, right? We're not actually trading to receive these. So when I give you something, you don't owe me something in return as some sort of fact of economics. That being said, obviously it may be, there may be some sort of embarrassment around, I gave you a gift and you didn't realize that our relationship was such that we were going to exchange gifts, that kind of thing. There may be some embarrassment around, I gave you an expensive gift, you gave me a less expensive one. But this is ritually and sacredly mitigated by some important concepts in Christmas. One is that it's better to give than to receive. And secondly, that it's the thought that counts. Thus, if one of us gives too much or too little, even if it causes some embarrassment, both embarrassment and negligence of the obligation are mitigated by these tenets, which enjoin us to show mercy to the other and find joy in giving. All right, so let me explain why I think that this ritual is fundamentally transformative. All right. So this gets at the heart of the sacred nature of the ritual of secular Christmas. Gift exchange transforms us spiritually, particularly in a capitalist economy, precisely because it's not capitalist. We are not actually discrete and separate beings. There's no point at which I end and the cosmos begins. No point at which the cosmos ends and you begin. The truth is that we flow into each other. Just as our minds are embedded in our bodies are embedded in the cosmos and in nature. If the cosmos is an ocean, we are the waves. We swell out of the ocean, right? We crest, we crash. So the grand illusion is that we are separate from the rest of us and that we're separate from the cosmos. But the truth is that our relationship with the cosmos is actually that we participate in the cosmos as part of the mind of the cosmos, the world soul, as the Neoplatonists would say. So each of us, as conscious beings, is kind of like a brain cell in the cosmos. Our relationships are like the synapses. You see, the cosmos has a conscious aspect to it through us. So in lifting the grand illusion, we transform ourselves into a new understanding of who we are. Let me explain next how I think that the secular Christmas ritual accomplishes this. Giving gifts makes us happy. It feels good to give. That's one of the lessons of the holiday. So why does it feel good to give? That's a very interesting thing, because usually when we're talking about happiness, we're talking about a selfish form of happiness, right? So oftentimes, the more one attempts to find happiness, the more one is in agony, right? I mean, this is Buddhism 101, that you chase your desires, and in chasing your desires, you create your own suffering, right? Because you like in agony that you're not getting all the things that you want, and that you have bad things you don't like. And it's not to say that you shouldn't desire things, or that you shouldn't acknowledge things that are annoying or uncomfortable or painful or that cause you suffering, say the Buddhists. But, the point is that there's a difference between being attached to that and let going of your attachment and just being in a way that that lets go of that cycle of wanting all the time and trying to get things all the time, and instead enjoy what you have, enjoy what comes to you, and everything, right? But this is a type of happiness that's not that type. And I think what's different about it is that it's not selfish. So let's unpack that just a bit. I think that one reason why finding happiness in giving is such a profoundly different experience is because it's fundamentally not a selfish pursuit. The happiness directly goes to the person receiving, but you also receive happiness by giving through them being happy. Why so? Our happiness in giving comes from being part of a community, and also of the greater community of humanity. We give gifts to members of our clan, our family, and our tribe, our friends. But we also have gifts exchanges at work. We give to charities that poor children can have gifts on Christmas. So there's an extent to which, although there's literal clan and tribe, there's also an extended clan and tribe that's all of humanity as one. We are not isolated self-agents, right? As I've already described, we are part of a larger whole. We would not survive without society. We depend on roads, we depend on law enforcement and justice systems to protect us from thieves and murderers. We depend on our militaries to defend our nations against conquerors. We are, in fact, interdependent rather than independent. And once we realize this, we realize it does not mean that we should naively trust others, but rather that we are striving for symbiosis and cooperation with our fellows, knowing that this is difficult. So, in other words, there's a difference between a naive type of symbiosis and a mature type of symbiosis. The mature type of symbiosis, however, is not the same as preying on other people. It's totally different. And so it's wrong to equivocate between like conquest and just defending ourselves and our allies against tyrants. D-Day is still possible within mature symbiosis because the goal of it is to keep Hitler from conquering, not to conquer, right? So there's also no such thing as the rugged individual. That's not a thing. We can't survive on our own unless you're a hermit without tools. Except for tools maybe you made yourself, and then without any knowledge of how to make tools from anybody else, which seems almost impossible. Unless you're that, you are an integral part of society. You survive because of your membership in society. All right? When we realize this, it becomes pleasurable for us to give. To give on Christmas is a ritual act of non-selfishness. And I've coined the term allish rather than selfless because while selfishness cuts you out from the cosmos and pretends like you don't need the context of the cosmos and humanity to be you, which you do, because it doesn't make any sense. You have no meaning without that context. Selflessness cuts yourself out of the cosmos and leaves a U-shaped hole in the cosmos, not a letter U shaped, but a hole shaped like you, right? And that also is meaningless because then you're not there to be part of it. So I say all-ish, but, the Christmas gift transforms us from the illusory understanding that we ourselves are independent beings separate from the cosmos to the true realization that we ourselves are part of an integrated whole, the whole of humanity, which is within the whole of the cosmos. So, why do we perform this act of gift giving around the winter solstice? Well, okay, so, in the southern hemisphere, maybe that means something different. I don't know. I'm not living in the southern hemisphere. Obviously, near the equator, that might be different. But here are some thoughts. The winter solstice is the darkest the year gets, at least here. And Christmas is the promise of new growth, symbolized by evergreens, the returning spring, likewise, and of new light, symbolized by the lights. The movement in the cycle of the year from darkness to light can also be symbolic of the shift in our soul, and here I just mean our minds, okay, our psyches. The shift in our soul or minds from a dark soul to an enlightened one. Now, I mean that light comes in to our soul. Now, this does not make us these sages or saints or Buddhas or something. I don't mean that we become enlightened beings, but it's a ritual act of allowing this light to come into us, which is an ongoing and never-ending refinement of ourselves from dark beings to light beings. And the more we can get rid of that darkness and have the light come in, the more transformed we are from our illusory selves as independent individuals separate from the cosmos to integrated selves that are integrated with community, humanity, and nature. All right, so what we are talking about here with the light is the light of truth. Okay, so the light also is a symbol which is the symbol of truth. The truth is the truth of our integration. The darkness is the falsehood of our independent existence as separate beings who can be selfish. And the light is also the realization that selfishness is self-defeating, and that true meaning comes from being integrated with community and humanity, which is enacted ritually by the gift giving, in which it is good to give. It is happy to give. It gives you joy to give. All right. And so evil, and this is Neoplatonism, okay? Evil is the shadow cast by the blockage of our selfishness. The light of oneness is trying to shine in, the truth is trying to shine in, but the illusion of selfishness, or rather the illusion of self, that an independent self that creates that selfishness, causes evil to exist. Evil is not actually a thing, it's a non-thing. Shadow has no substance, and yet shadow is extremely powerful. Assassins clothe themselves in shadows, right? Like we talk about shadows substantively, and they really are like a real thing. We actually can take shade in them. They are dark, they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So shadows still matter, but they are not actually composed of matter. All right? And thus, just so, evil doesn't have positive existence. It doesn't exist as a real thing. Goodness exists as a real thing. The truth is that we are one. Evil exists as an illusion, but it's the grand illusion, and it's an extremely powerful illusion that causes terrible, terrible things in the world. So, what does this mean about the ritual of gift giving and the ritual of secular Christmas? It means that it is a transformative spiritual practice that causes us to see ourselves in a new way, not as discrete selves that are independent, but as interdependent parts of a larger whole. And this brings about a sense of goodness in ourselves and helps us be better people through the ritual of gift giving and the realization that it is a joy to give as well as a joy to receive. So, why do conservative Christians, at least some of them, have this opposition to secular Christmas? Well, because they want to think that Christianity is the one right, true, and only way. It's inconvenient for them to realize that secular Christmas is actually sacred and spiritual and has this spiritually transformative effect that does not require Christianity. And why do they want Christianity to be the one right, true, and only way? Because they are elitists and they want to feel superior to the rest of us. So, go figure. So, whether you celebrate Christian Christmas, or secular Christmas, or pagan Yule, or the Festival of Soul and Weakness from which Christmas was co-opted, or whatever, I would like to wish all of you who celebrate Christmas a very Merry Christmas. Praise be to Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus and the elves. May they bless you with the enlightenment through the ritual act of giving. And don't forget to leave out milk and cookies, because we all know that that's how you make offerings to the spirits. All right. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. Blessed be.